Okay. We have, as we had at our last meeting, we had Flight Fryman went over issue 1, 2, and 3. And we went through those, and we're going to hit that again a little bit, but also tonight because, well, actually multiple reasons for Sheriff Mincks being here this evening. He was coming to address issue 3. He told me he was going to put an article in the paper, and because I got a slew, and a slew is, I don't know how many is a slew, I don't know whether that's 3 or 50 calls, there has been no real explanation of issue 3 by anyone other than just someone speaking kind of off of the top of their head, like smoking pot's probably not all that good. So the state, our OLC, we had several people calling me saying, can we get anything? We need to get it out. And so I called Larry, and he graciously, Sunday, I called him on Sunday, and I said, could you speak and address this? And Todd is going to record it, and we're going to have a video. It will go, as soon as Todd gets it twisted around and turned back out, we will have it on our website, and it's going to be on the Ohio Liberty Coalition's website, and then it'll be sent out to all the Liberty groups in the state. Then they can hopefully push that out to all 47,000 people that we have on our email list. So it is imperative that we get this message out, because messaging is not always true. And we want true messaging. Listening to the poor people that had to move to Colorado. Okay, go. Oh, that's my opinion. Okay. Well, so we need true messaging. So, Sheriff Mincks. And here is a good spotlight spot that will make you look very young. And it'll take a lot. That is yours. Thank you. Would that be okay if I lay it down here? Or I think so. Todd, we good on sound? Speak something.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, off the clip. Thank you very much for having me tonight. Always a pleasure to be out here. I did want to pass along a little bit my thoughts on issue 3, but it's solely my thoughts, and someone else may want to talk to you and try to convince you of their thoughts. But this is my opinion solely. I think that, and I have written a letter to the editor, which went to the Marietta Times. However, I don't know what happened to it. I haven't seen it come in. I don't read the Marietta Times. Maybe that's a reason. Maybe I should start reading it, find out what happened to it. I would encourage you, of course, to oppose issue 3 because, we already have a lot of drugs in our community, and issue 3 is going to open the floodgates and bring even more in. And contrary to what the television people, the ads might show, law enforcement is not out there tracking down people for smoking pot and putting them in jail. This afternoon about 2 o'clock, I called our jail and asked them a couple questions. One was, how many people do we have incarcerated right now? And they advised me 118. We're almost full. We have a 124-bed facility. And then I asked them, how many people are in there for drug offenses? And they said 35. And then I asked them, out of those 35, how many of them were charged with marijuana in any type of form? And they told me 3. However, I asked them to look up and look some of the details, and of those 3 that were charged with marijuana, none of those, that was the primary offense. It was an offense that we charged them with after they had called their attention from us to them. For example, one was a female who we had arrested and was doing time for possession of heroin, and she was doing it on weekends. And so when she came back in for her last weekend visit, she had concealed in a body cavity some marijuana for, I guess, her use while she was in there. And so we charged her with conveyance into a corrections facility, secondary charge. The other two, one of them had been charged with domestic violence, and the other one had been charged with B&E. And both of them had marijuana on them when we made an arrest. So it was not, we were not out there looking for them. It was not our intention to go out and find marijuana smokers and then, throw them in jail. And I think that the people who are supporting marijuana would have us believe that it's a harmless drug and it should be legalized and regulated, and it would be about the same as alcohol. Well, we are regulating alcohol, but we certainly are not using it responsibly. You can see that. We are on track probably to hit a 15-year high on the number of people that we've killed on our highways. We're headed that way, and a lot of those are as a result of drunk drivers. And I don't think we want more fatal accidents, so I don't know why we should legalize something else that's going to help us reach that goal that we don't want. If you want to, like we mentioned here, I'd like to take a look at issue 3 itself. Now, if it was passed, it would cement itself really into the Constitution of the state of Ohio by creating a $1 billion monopoly with a select group of people of being able to run it. It basically would be a legalized drug cartel. And I think we already have enough of organized crime and, like I said, the use of alcohol. We don't need any more. As a result of that, of the number of things here, the Buckeye State Sheriff's Association, the chiefs of police, the Highway Patrol, all are opposing issue 3. Now, I want to talk about the amendment even a little bit more itself. The use of medical marijuana and these debilitating medical conditions. Well, that leaves a lot of room for explanation, and there's really no explanations in the amendment. For example, the relationship with the doctor. We had pill mills here in Marietta within the last 10 years. We had one over on the west side where, you could walk in, and we sent an undercover agent in, and within 2 minutes and 43 seconds, he came out with 3 prescriptions. And $365, of course, $100 for each one of the scripts and $65 for the office visit, which, believe it or not, was on the back of a Post-it note. That was his record. When we went in, that was the record for the office visit. He went in and said he was a truck driver, his back was hurting, and he was having trouble sleeping. So he came out with Percocet, Ambien, and some type of amphetamine to help keeping him awake because he was a long-distance truck driver. This is what I think we may be headed to, and we could actually have marijuana mills rather than pill mills, because the restrictions on the doctors are very, very, non-existent. They're not there. They don't give any guidelines on it. The medical marijuana, kind of interesting. Of course, the state is going to regulate, and they're going to be the ones that's going to be producing it. And if you're not able to afford the marijuana, then they have what they call basically welfare weed, because you can go in and apply, and if you can't afford it, then they'll give it to you. Now the question is, where's the money going to come from to supply this welfare weed? Well, if they're not making it off of their sale, it's going to be a state organization. The commission is going to be run by the state. So conceivably, it looks like it could come out of the general fund. The general fund is where you pay your taxes. And I'm going to pause it. The doctor-patient relationship. There are no guidelines set up to guarantee that the doctors who are going to be issuing the medical certificates, that they have been trained to determine what ailments would support the use of marijuana. They could just write it and give you a script, so to speak, to use marijuana. Now the marijuana scares me also because of what they are able to do. You can almost use it it says something like it can be used in public places. It can be used in basically maybe in corrections facilities. I don't know if you have a script for it, but the designated places that you can use it is very scary. Now, as far as the actual marijuana, the section of law, it says a person can grow, possess, and share. The word share really bothers me. You can share 4 flowering marijuana plants or 8 ounces of processed marijuana. Now, let's say for, just hypothetical here, we've got 100 people in here. Maybe we all decide that we're going to share with each other your marijuana, but I'm going to be the person that's going to be growing it. So, conceivably, if we have 100 people in here, and I am confronted by the authorities, I could say I am sharing with these other 99, so I'm allowed to have 400 plants. Also, the 8 ounces of processed marijuana, that means the 400 of us, we would be allowed to have 200 pounds. I could have 200 pounds and say it's part of what we are sharing. We are sharing it. I can remember, 10 years ago here where we were doing eradication efforts. We continue to do this, but 10 years ago was a pretty good crop. And in the northern part of Washington County, southern part of Morgan, we were taking plants out of there that were 16 feet high. And the base of it was probably about that big around. And some of those plants we were weighing equivalent of about 6 pounds of usable marijuana. So that's really a lot, but it's not uncommon to get 3 or 4 pounds of marijuana off of one plant usable. So the 4 flowering plants that we're going to share, could be 400 pounds, who knows? The law is or the amendment, I guess, is so vague that they have left it open. It's really going to be hard for us to enforce, and also, I guess, about put law enforcement out of business as far as marijuana is concerned. Now, of interest, I'm sure you all know that possessing and selling, transporting marijuana is a federal offense, although it's not being enforced by our current administration or our current attorney general. They've just dropped out as far as enforcement of it whatsoever. But it is still a federal crime. And as we were discussing back there, in Colorado, they are very, very leery, and I've heard the same thing that's going to be happening in Ohio, is if it is passed and they do set up these distribution locations, that they're going to be very reluctant to use banks, because if you use a bank, if you write a check or if you use a credit card, you can trace that. I was in the federal government for 25 years with the Criminal Investigation Division of the IRS. I know it's a word you guys don't like to hear in here, but that's what I used to do, was money laundering and tracing assets that people were trying to get out of the process of the proceeds of drugs and put it into their own individual accounts. So the people in Colorado are reluctant to use checks and credit cards because they're afraid if the next administration comes along and they decide they're going to enforce this federal statute, which they could, then they could be looking at RICO. and it meets the requirements. I mean, you've got interstate, your credit cards, of course, you get them in one state, you pay another one, and your bill comes from another location. So, all you have to do is trace that, and you would have a conspiracy, a racketeering conspiracy. The taxation of the marijuana revenue, interesting as to how they're going to do that. Of course, they're saying here in Ohio that the tax is going to be about 5%. When in Colorado, they were taxing at 25%, and they were bringing in about 44 million, which would make it about a total gross of 176 million. Well, I've heard estimates that here in Ohio, where the business is going to be a lot more lucrative, and why the sponsors of this bill are wanting it so much is for the dollars that's going to be here. I've heard the figure that it may bring in 293 million. So, and that we're charging a 5%. Colorado was charging 25. So that means our gross is probably going to be around $5 billion that we're going to be selling all over if we're going to bring in that kind of income. And somebody is making these calculations. This is figures that I am getting. So it means it's going to be a very profitable business. The entire monopoly, and that's what it's going to be, is going to be run by a commission. And who is selecting the commission, what their qualifications are going to be, has not really been established, other than one is going to be a physician, one will be a law enforcement officer, one will be an attorney, and one will be a person who has demonstrated experience in owning, developing, managing, and operating businesses. Donald Trump rang into my mind right then when I heard that. I don't know whether he's interested in this job or not, but I don't know how well he's going to do in the other business that he's in or trying to get into. So that briefly is a rough overview of issue 3. Is there anyone that has any questions that I could address, sir? They're not from Ohio, I don't believe. I really don't know. I have heard there's a lot of committees that have used rather bogus names that are supplying a lot of money, and I don't think anybody has really investigated and found out. To answer your question, I don't know who is really sponsoring it, but I do know they're putting a lot of money into it. Dan, would you speak really loud?
Has there been any investigation as to what the effects of the law in Colorado?
There's been an increase in robberies, homicides, breaking and entering. Total crime is up, I think, 12%. They're also having an influx of people who are moving to Colorado, who are sleeping on the streets. Their agencies that supply welfare benefits has gone up. It hasn't been anything that's good. I don't see any good part about it. Sir? I agree with you. And I will add one other thing. Back in the 80s, when I was working in the field, the THC content of marijuana was 4 or 5%. Now, it's unbelievable what the THC content is. It's 60, 70%. When we first had cocaine, people were getting our highs on coke, and then they decided to strip out all the additives, and they had crack cocaine, and that became even a bigger demon. Now that's what we're trying to do with marijuana. They're going to strip out all of the impurities and make as pure as THC as they possibly can. And I have talked and heard of people who've had some experience with this directly, and some of these overdoses that people are experiencing with the THC is similar to PSP and some of the other psychic drugs that takes control of your mind.
This is time to ask. Very important. Yeah.
No. The way I understand it, no, yes, no. Probably do it, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
I'd asked Larry Mincks the other day when we were chit-chatting about another issue, and they go out to community meetings, his drug enforcement team, and gives you information. And what I asked Larry the other night is, I said, or the other day, whenever it was I saw him, I don't even know what tonight is, hardly. But anyway, if you have a church group, a neighborhood group, call us. All of you people have friends. You can get 7 or 8 people in your room. We can bring people to you because your grandparents and parents, you're probably going to be the ones that are going to be talking to your grandchildren. And they need to help you help them get this message out. Because there's a whole group of people that really don't want this out. And tragically, I was thinking when you said the man went in over on West Side and saw someone in 2 minutes, I sat at a doctor's office the other day for 2 hours. I went to the wrong doctor.
You did. I could get you in.
Yeah, in jail.